All right, we'll give it a few minutes for everyone just to get in the room, and then we'll get started.
Who's going totally online this year? Anybody?
Yeah, my chapter is.
What school?
Babson College.
LSU still, as of now, we're going to be on campus, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Wait, where is that?
LSU in Louisiana,
Oh, wow.
so we'll see how that goes.
I suspect there'll be a lot of schools that start it on person on campus and have to go online halfway through the semester once it spikes again.
Right, and that's what they had told us, that we were going to be on campus as long as we could, but after Thanksgiving, we were going to shift to completely online. So we'll see if it goes that long, or we'll go back earlier.
Yeah, I teach at UConn, where that's actually exactly what we're doing. We're going to be on person till Thanksgiving, theoretically, and then online afterwards.
That's what we're doing at St. Joe's in Philly.
Okay.
Yeah, Elon's doing the same thing. So our last day of class, like 2 days before Thanksgiving, and then we're doing finals virtually.
Is Elon starting early then?
We're starting August 19th, which is a couple days earlier than normal.
Gotcha.
That's a popular option for law schools. All right. I think that everyone who's going to be in the room is probably in the room at this point. So let's get started. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is David Greenberg. I serve as the Northern Atlantic Regional Director for AKSI. So that is a region that covers half of upstate New York, all of New England, as well as the United Kingdom. So we are an international fraternity. A lot of people forget that. And we're actually doing a lot of UK expansion over the next few years as well. So we'll be continuing to grow internationally as well. When I'm not volunteering for KSI, I'm a professional educator. So I actually teach at UConn, as well as at middle school and high schools around the state of Connecticut. So that's a little bit about me. And so if you are on this call, that means that you are either a current VPA, EVP, whatever you call it in your chapter. People have different names for it. But basically the second in command in your chapter behind the president is really what this presentation is for. Or you're someone who wants that role in the future. That's really who this presentation is geared for. And typically one of the main roles that this position has in the chapter, this is usually the position that is in charge of committees in the chapter for most chapters. And committee selection is really where you're going to make or break your semester, in my opinion, in this role. So that's why we start with this as our first sort of main slide. So first and foremost, when you're thinking about where to place people on committees, you want to make sure that everyone in your chapter has a committee that they're placed on, so that everyone has something that they can do and can contribute to the fraternity in every semester. Even if they're not the committee chair, they're not in a leadership role, you still want to give everyone that chance to step up and give everyone that chance to contribute to the chapter. And ultimately, that gives them the opportunity for growth and development that they signed up for when they joined AKSI. So that's the first thing that you want to keep in mind when you're selecting committee positions for each individual in your chapter. Then, of course, you want to consider people's individual skill sets and interests. So, for example, if someone's a marketing major, right, and they're really great with graphic design, you probably want to put them on the marketing committee, right? If someone is, has a lot of professional connections, then obviously they'd be a better fit for professional committee. So things along those lines are things that you want to keep in mind when you're obviously making your selections, right? And then you want to consider people's potential as well as already proven abilities. And one of the best ways to do this, honestly, is to have a mix on each committee of older and younger brothers. That way the younger brothers can sort of learn from the older brothers and sort of shadow them and then sort of move up the ranks in the chapter as they grow and then become those older brothers who become the mentors on each committee, right? But having a nice mix of, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, especially in the spring semester, is probably the best policy for any given committee when possible. So I'll pause here for looking at any questions on committee selection before we move on. Okay. So then the other part of committee selection is, besides picking what committee each member is going to be on, is you have to select a committee chair or co-chairs to be responsible for leading the committee. Committee chairs are responsible for facilitating the committee meetings, distributing and delegating tasks, and that's probably the most important part that a lot of people miss. Is sometimes committee chairs tend to do all the work themselves in a lot of committees. They really shouldn't be. They should be delegating tasks to their committee members. Then ensuring tasks are completed. So they are really the ones leading the committee, but not the ones doing all the work themselves. They should be remaining an active leader on the committee, providing action plans and planning for events themselves as well. They just shouldn't be doing all the work themselves is the key here. So I'll give you guys another chance. Does anyone have any questions on committee chairs, committee selections, anything along those lines before we move on to the chapter calendar? My other piece of advice for committee chairs is oftentimes people in this position, VPA, EVP, whatever you call it, will select the person who has the best ideas for a committee chair. And I've led this kind of session before at PBLIs, and I usually caution actually against doing that because it's very tempting to do so. What I recommend is if you have a choice between people who have applied, select the person who you think's the better leader, not the person who has the better ideas. The person who has better ideas should definitely be on that committee, no doubt, because they're going to contribute a lot to that committee. But the person who's a better leader is going to be the person who's going to be delegating tasks to the committee members and not going to just take it all on themselves and try to do it that way. And so trying to figure out who's going to be the best leader for a committee and who's really going to delegate tasks and get everyone involved and get everyone motivated to actually do something and contribute, that's going to be the person that you really want in that position as committee chair. Be my last piece of advice for committees right there. All right. So then let's go on to talk about the chapter calendar. So this position is usually also in charge of the chapter calendar for most chapters. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you update the calendar before the year begins. So if you haven't already started working on that, you definitely want to start working on that at this point. And you want to start working with your committees to figure out what events you could put on the calendar. Obviously, with COVID, it's going to be a lot more difficult than most years. No doubt about that. But as much as you could do, virtual professional sessions through Zoom, right? Virtual fundraisers, maybe even a virtual service. I think it was actually Elon, I think is on here, did a virtual 5K or something along those lines, or a virtual walk-along.
Yeah, we had that step challenge we did virtually.
Right, which I think was awesome. So things along those lines, try to be creative. This is really your chance to shine with creativity this year. But try to put as many events on that calendar as you can to really get your members excited, because this is a chance to really show off kind of what you have planned for the fall semester. And we should have a chance at the end to discuss some of those plans as well and share some ideas. But you want to basically plan these events in advance and use the chapter success plan as a planning tool to really help you do this. And then, of course, you want to distribute this to the chapter members so they can begin to plan in advance and they can get excited about the events that you have planned and have in store for them. All right, so you definitely want committees up and running and working really before the semester if possible. I know people are busy with internships and whatnot, but as much as you can, get people to start planning now. So now I want to open up the floor a little bit and ask a few questions. So how does your chapter currently structure committees? So does your chapter currently have everyone on a committee? Does your chapter only have some individuals on a committee? What committees do you think your chapter has that are unique to your chapter besides the basic professional service, social, Is everyone participating? Does everyone feel included? And are people actually completing their tasks? Does anyone want to share on these questions?
I will for the Beta Chi's for LSU.
Sure.
So we currently have 11 different committees, and we just added this previous semester, we added our diversity and inclusivity committee.
Great.
And then this fall semester, we're introducing our marketing team and investment team too. And so right after we do our spring elections, the EVP makes a big form and sends it out to all the members, and it asks them different questions varying with the committees, and they can kind of rank where they want to be and where their interest is. And so I took that and split every member up into their respective committees and tried to even it out. And I got with the committee leaders to try to figure out how many people would suit them best. So everyone is participating in it. And since we did introduce the committee system a few years back, it's shown a lot of great things, and especially our Beta Chi does a Yellow Rose Gala at the end of the year. And so our corporate relations does that. And we sadly did not get to have it in the spring, but it was supposed to be really cool. And we look forward to having it as soon as we can. But our Diversity Inclusivity Committee, it's brand new. It's only been around for a semester. And so we are excited to see where we can take that. And we actually are about to open it back up. Our current chair had to step down, but we're about to open that back up to see where we can take it and make it as best as it can be.
Thank you for sharing. Awesome committees that you mentioned there. The diversity committee is one that is probably up in a lot of chapters right now, given just the current issues in our nation, right? And the reality that we're facing right now. You mentioned an investment team or investment committee, which is awesome. Actually, at my home chapter, my big actually created that for my home chapter. So I have a personal connection there for that one. But that's also a really awesome opportunity where people can actually invest chapter funds in the stock market and get like real life experience in a sort of safe place to do so. You mentioned the Yellow Rose Gala and having a corporate sponsorship team work with that. So those are all committees that are really excellent to have in a chapter that not necessarily everyone has, but you could add if you don't already. Anyone else want to share?
Sure. Hi guys, I'm April. I'm from Purdue. In something we're launching this year, it's a new committee. Well, it's not really a committee as much as a small team of people working on this. Is an analytics team. So what this is we have 3 brothers who are pretty interested in like computer science or just any of that more STEM background. And so they're looking at old points tables, finances, even social media statistics, and then kind of doing a data project, analyzing that so we can find, the most successful like social media campaigns that we've had, or better ways to manage finances. And honestly, they've been working over the summer so far, and I've been so impressed with everything they've done. We have a really heavy STEM chapter, so we thought this would be a great way to get brothers involved in something that might be, really oriented in their career if they're a non-business brother.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never heard of anything like that actually before. So that's the first I've heard of that kind of committee before. But that's an awesome way to really just take your brother's passions and make most of it for the chapter. So whenever you can do that, that's always an awesome idea. Well, thank you for sharing. We have time for one more person or 2 more people to share. If anyone else wants to jump in.
Hey guys, I'm Amory. I'm from UT Knoxville. And so we have 24 committees, I believe, 24, 25. Recently, we just added class council, which is under VPMD. And what we are planning to do with that is, since we are going virtual, it's really hard for, I don't know, we all feel like it's really hard to just meet as a brotherhood besides meeting just face-to-face via computer screen like we are now. So class council, we created for 2 members from each pledge class to be in constant communication with exec. So if anybody has questions for them or for exec that doesn't feel comfortable reaching out to us by themselves, then they can reach out to the class council person to come ask us. We just started that. We have 8 people, I believe, right now, and so that's where we wanted it. We're really excited to see how this goes because obviously we just put it in this year, and yeah, we're really excited for that.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I created something somewhat similar to that when I was in a student position. So I was the first ever vice president of Brotherhood for my chapter, and I created something called Brotherhood Council, which is very similar, where there was one representative from every single pledge class. And the goal there was that it was someone that people would be comfortable talking to. They didn't want to talk to e-board. And then from there, we could get information from the chapter and get feedback and whatnot. So I definitely recommend a committee along those lines if you don't have something like that, where every pledge class is represented. And it's just all about, brotherhood, about getting feedback, about people being able to just feel comfortable, speaking to someone in a position that it'll get to then put up to the e-board, and change can be made in the chapter when necessary. So really, really awesome ideas that everyone has said so far. We have time for one more if anyone wants to share.
I'll jump in. I'm Duro. I'm from the Gamma Nu chapter at Babson. Actually, something we've kind of been now facing is that we are going virtual, and we realize that some of our committees are actually not going to really be implemented like very heavily. So what we were considering was actually starting a miniature like consulting for those committees who were unable to participate. So especially of the older brothers who are not really going to see much more activity, they would be the ones that we would have lead these projects. We would go seeking clients who are looking for a lot of freelance work, and then we would come together and eventually find one or two leaders from those committees, and they would lead those projects.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think consulting is a really, really great opportunity for brothers in AKSI. And that is a really creative way of dealing with this sort of virtual situation that we have. So I think that's an excellent way to go for the semester. All right. So one of the things that is always a problem with chapters is funding. You could always use more money, right? In terms of funding chapter events, a lot of your events this year might cost very little because you might be doing them over Zoom. And so if you're doing that, it's free versus, let's say like a big Yellow Rose banquet at the end. The semester costs a lot of money. If you can't do that, then you might not need as much funding as usual. But as much money as you can get, the better you can do. One source of funds is membership donations or dues. It's a basic source of funds. It's the least risky method. You'd also look at foundations and grants. Some schools or student unions or student governments will do various grants for organizations. Oftentimes, this is for new projects for traditional community groups, and they rarely fund for just sort of normal operating expenses. But let's say you were starting like a consulting group, for example, you might be able to get a grant for that potentially. Or, let's say you're starting a new investment group or a new diversity committee. Those are things that potentially you can look into getting funding for. You can look at contributions from outside vested interests, so merchants as sort of, sponsors, parents and alumni. You can do mutual benefit projects, so donors with no direct link to the organization receive a service for their money. So, for example, sales of products, services, advertising, or even consulting in this case. And then also, you can use alumni who work for companies who donate matching funds. So if an alumni wants to make a donation to the foundation, which is tax deductible, then you can have their company oftentimes match that. So I'll always ask your alumni if they do donate to see if their company matches donations. Any questions on funding? I went through that relatively quickly. All right. Parliamentary procedure is something that you guys learn when you're pledges, so I assume that you are fairly familiar with it. I'm not going to go too much in depth with it. But you want to make sure that in this position you are familiar with parliamentary procedure, because if the president is absent for whatever reason from a meeting, let's say they're out sick or something along those lines, you as VPA or EVP would then step in and you would be the one leading the meeting. So you want to make sure just basically the flow of the meeting and how everything goes. So any standing rules your chapter has created, you want to know that. You want to make sure that you're using parliamentary procedure correctly because it increases meeting efficiency and just makes everything easier. Officially, you have to have quorum, which is 50% plus one of your chapter, a presiding officer, which is you, again, if the president is not there, and a secretary to officially hold a meeting. And any debates should follow a pro-con-pro format, generally speaking. So that's a little bit about parliamentary procedure. Again, I'm not going to go too much to that because it's pretty basic. This is something that I want to go a little bit more into, which is suspensions and reinstatement terms, because this is something that a lot of chapters struggle with and don't necessarily do properly all the time. So there are two reasons why a chapter would suspend someone, and I'll go into disciplinary reasons in a moment, but that's actually not at the chapter level. So first is non-attendance. To be suspended for non-attendance, it should be 3 unexcused absences per semester, or 2 per quarter if you're a quarter school on the West Coast. There's a whole bunch of those. We recommend reinstatement terms like doing community service hours. We could recommend like 2 to 5 service hours, or a meeting with the executive board, or presenting something to the chapter about why it's important to attend events or chapter, or creating personal goals and meeting them, right? With maybe an officer from the e-board. All right, those are all good reinstatement terms to put into place. We are saying at this point that we are not doing fines or fees for non-attendance. Ultimately, fines and fees don't really encourage someone to attend more events. It just penalizes someone. And y'all are broke college students. No one has money for that. Like, let's be real, right? So we are really saying to go with more actionable items like these community service hours, like meetings with the executive board, like giving a presentation for the chapter, things that create more value rather than just finding them or giving them a fee. We should not include mandatory attendance at closed chapter events because that should already be expected of them. So that isn't really a great term to use for reinstatement because if it's mandatory attendance, they should be coming to it anyway. It should not include future attendance, generally speaking, or 100% attendance. And it should also not include chapter or e-board vote because it's still at the time of suspension. So when you suspend someone, the e-board should be voting on the suspension terms. And from that point, that once they meet the suspension terms, it's an automatic reinstatement and they get a clean slate from that point. So does that all make sense for non-attendance? Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, guess not. All right. And then the other reason why a chapter could suspend someone is for financial reasons. This one's simpler. To be suspended, you must be 3 days past due. So if your dues are due, let's say October 1st, on October 31st, if someone hasn't paid, then they are suspended. Reinstatement terms for suspension for financial reasons should always be just to pay that amount that they owe. Once they pay the amount that they owe with no extra fines or fees, it's an automatic reinstatement and clean slate. They are good to go. So that is financial reasons. That's pretty simple. It's just about getting them to pay what they owe, but we're not going to penalize them even more so, especially because people who don't pay on time are often not paying because they are in some sort of financial difficulty. So to assess a fine or fee on top of that, really, it isn't right, just from an integrity standpoint, I think, personally at least. Now, in terms of disciplinary suspensions, that actually does not happen at the chapter level, and this is a common misconception. It actually happens at the fraternal level. So if there is an incident where a member needs to be suspended for some sort of disciplinary reason, you have to contact your RD. You have to go through the fraternity level judiciary committee. And if there is a case that justifies suspending a member for disciplinary reasons, the JC will be the ones who handle that case, and will give guidance on how to do that. That is not done purely at the chapter level, so I want to make that clear here. And a lot of chapters mess that up sometimes, so be careful with that. It's a common misconception. Any questions on suspensions, generally speaking, or reinstatement terms, generally speaking? Okay, so then we have a whole host of resources. And Amber, correct me if I'm wrong, will this PowerPoint be sent out to the attendees?
Yeah, we're going to send it out so you guys will have this page, because those are like real links so that you guys can just go to the other pages for those resources.
Excellent. Thank you, Amber. So chapter meeting procedures, that's the parliamentary procedure idea of how to guide and conduct chapter meetings. And there's parliamentary procedure at a glance in the knowledge base as well that lays out like everything you need to know about parliamentary procedure, things that you probably don't even use in your chapter that you might want to consider adopting. We have a whole bunch of Operations Avenue, which is what they mentioned before, the podcast that is all about basically how to run your chapter. So there's one on committees, there's one on fundraising, there's one on event planning. Those would be ones that would be good for you guys to watch and listen to in your roles. There's a whole VP of Admin YouTube playlist of videos that would be useful for you guys to watch. And then there's a general officer development YouTube playlist that would be useful to watch. So a lot of good stuff that you can use to get ready for your position in the fall if this is your first semester in your term coming up. And so I want to thank you all for your attention and for your time this evening. And I want to open it up to general questions, or if anyone wants to share some of their plans or questions or ideas for the fall semester, we can do that as well.
I have a question. I know everything's still uncertain for this upcoming year, but are you guys making your attendance policies more lax because of COVID? Or do you guys know how you're doing that yet?
Good question.
So we have at St. Joe's in Philadelphia, we'll have so a lot of like the larger rooms that we would use for chapter or other events are actually turned into classrooms. So we're kind of preparing or expecting that we're going to have all of our chapter meetings online through Zoom, just because we have like 100 people in our chapter, so it's just not really going to be feasible to do it in smaller rooms. Maybe we'll end up doing smaller sessions like breakout, but we'll see.
I know at LSU we're waiting to get approval to see if we can have more than 10 people in a room, and we were going to reserve different rooms, and so all of our officers would be in one room, and then each pledge class would have their own room, and we would all just kind of have a Zoom meeting that way, just so it's still, everybody still has to dress up for the dress code and still come to campus like we normally do, and can still kind of see each other in the hallways or from a distance, whatever. But just so that kind of, we're going to give the option, so if some people live with parents or elderly people that are more at risk with it, they can attend from their house, or if they have a commute that's longer than normal.
Actually, at Nova Southeastern University, Omega Rho, they implemented the system within the classrooms to where you can virtually like log in and still be in the classroom. It's a really cool system. We haven't been able to see it yet, but that's what's been talked about. So we're just going to let brothers kind of come in if they want to, and then come in virtually as well. So like have that hybrid mix, because we're not trying to force anybody to come in by any means. So that's kind of our approach for that.
We're kind of doing the same thing. So being at UT Knoxville, all of our classes, being majority business majors, are now all online. And so we're trying to just make it comfortable for people that have all online classes that are now at home due to the crazy commute that usually happens during our meeting times. And so if they are on campus, we're going to try to give them the option of coming into a room. But for those that do have the commute, we'll just be doing it from a virtual standpoint.
I think us at Elon are also going to try to do some sort of hybrid system where we will have as many people as the school will allow us to meet in person in a room, and then also broadcast that over Zoom so everyone else can join in virtually. And we're going to, right now the plan is to set up some sort of system so that everyone, so let's say it's only 10 or 20 people can be there in person, just to set up some sort of system so that you don't have the same few people showing up every time, and allowing everyone a chance to actually be there in person if they want to.
Good discussion so far. Anyone else have any other questions or ideas for the fall semester, especially given the whole COVID situation they want to discuss or just throw out into the group and get, feedback on?
I have a
After,
got it, Thomas.
no, after you.
I just had a question about recruitment and how you guys are thinking of doing your events specifically, and what kind of events you guys are maybe planning. Maybe we could just bounce ideas back and forth.
That was kind of what I wanted to bring up anyway, so definitely interested to hear about this.
Perfect. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that same kind of question right now. So let's discuss that. Who has ideas?
We actually just had our meeting for that yesterday, and so we're going to try to do some online Zoom info sessions, and then we're also trying to see if there's any way we could do a Zoom game night or online game night or something to try to get in touch with the hopeful pledges. And then we're trying to see overall how we're going to do it in a sense, and how the pledge class would work online. Hopefully that we can get more information about that to see how they will do that.
Awesome. Has everyone seen the YouTube video or the presentation from the Road chapter at University of Washington on virtual recruitment? They actually did a virtual recruitment last spring, and so they actually did a presentation with AKSI on it. Amber, would you mind finding that and just putting that in the chat for people to get?
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome. That'd be useful if you guys to see. I think it's an hour-long presentation because they really went into depth on everything they did and how they went through it. I think that'd be useful just to see a chapter that did end successfully last semester. Anyone else have any ideas for this fall, though, for recruitment?
I mean, we're kind of hoping that we can have some in-person events if they have to be outside, but I feel like so much of this semester, whether it's recruitment or whatever else, is on the kind of wait-and-see approach.
I think we couldn't hear you well, Thomas.
Sorry,
yeah, up there.
Is better?
Yeah, it's better now.
So I was just saying, we're kind of hopeful that we can have maybe some type of outdoor recruitment events, kind of, but it's all dependent on basically.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, I heard you're hoping that you can have some outdoor recruitment events, and then you broke up after that. The official policy for AKSI for this fall is that we are encouraging virtual recruitment, but follow the rules of your university. If your university says that outdoor in-person events are okay, then that's okay with us. If your university says, no more than 50 people in a indoor room, then make sure you're following that to the T, right? We want to be careful that whatever the university rule is, that's what we're following. So that is really sort of the general rule for this fall at least, if not for the foreseeable future. But yeah, as much as possible, plan for virtual, because I think there's going to be a lot of restrictions at most universities for in-person meetings of large sizes, which typically is what you want for recruitment, right? Anyone else I want to share for recruitment ideas?
I know
Hi,
that.
guys. Oops, sorry. Hi, guys. My name is Alex. I'm EPA for Carnegie Mellon University, Omega Psi chapter. And we actually just found out like 2 days ago that our recruitment has to be completely virtual. Our school is not allowing like any organizations to gather in person. So for us, our recruitment consists of a mix of professional events as well as like social events. So in terms of moving the professional events online, it should not be too much of a stretch to do so. We have like events called like How to Work a Room, where we have the rushies go to different like tables in a certain room and work on different professional skills. So people will take a look at their resume or like work on an elevator pitch. And in terms of moving that like virtually, it would be something like have all the rushies meet in a main room and then go to breakout rooms, and then the person or the brother leading the breakout rooms tells them to rotate every 15 minutes. We also do something called like AKSI Experience, which has different groups of brothers, again, that rushies rotate around to, and they talk about how AKSI has impacted a different part of their experience at CMU. So like athletics, other social, Greek life, volunteering, things like that. And I think that that will probably be like one of the easiest things for us to transition, but we're still working for like the more like social events, like we usually have a barbecue and things like that. So I think that's something that will still be needed to be worked on. Hope that helps.
Hey guys, my name is Sandro. I'm the inter-chapter relationships chair for Omega Rho. We're a chapter at NSU. Alyssa is actually our vice president. I was wondering if you guys think that we should have some kind of group chats for chapters to communicate really fast. Please let me know. That's my first project as inter-chapter relationships chair. So I'm gonna drop my email in the chat, and if you would like to be a part of that, fast communication group chat, please shoot me an email.
There is a group meet with should be like worldwide EVPs or whatever VPAs. So if y'all aren't in that, we can get y'all in that. I know they do have that. So
okay, yeah.
I'm in it. Hey, I'm in it. We're in the same chapter, so I got you. So anything we do, I'll send it through that group chat.
Sounds good.
You can also as well use the MyKSI community. There's going to be a position group for this VP admin or VP or EVP position as well. So there's a few different avenues you can use to communicate with everyone.
Right, like Steve showed us in the beginning, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And we really want to get people to use that more and more, especially because y'all are paying for it with dues partially. So.
Okay.
Anyone else want to share with recruitment ideas or have a different question?
This isn't really about COVID, but just in general, in the past, I think a lot of other people probably face this too. It tends to be just the committee head doing all the work, and the rest of the committee, especially like older brothers, just because they've kind of checked out, they kind of take the back burner and don't do much. Does anyone have active committees, and if so, how? Something I've been really trying to encourage, but still trying to see how it will go for next semester.
So I could definitely talk on that because I've been in a very similar situation, especially for our older brothers who are kind of on the back burner, don't want to really do anything. One thing we did was create a senior advisory board. So for all the brothers who really don't want to be so actively involved, we have it so that if we have any questions or about bylaws for our specific chapter or just general questions, we would direct them to the senior advisory board, just because they're the older ones and they've been around for a little bit longer. But as regards to trying to get people active, we start off with little we created this whole spreadsheet where we actually had our deadlines listed. So like you would get like a notification if you have a specific deadline that you need to meet, so that you can get that already notified to you. So that's if our committee heads are not really holding their members accountable, this notification would definitely do it. So
What we try to do, so in our point system, you get a partial part of your points from being on a committee. And so it's typically with us, I think it's 500 points. And so at the end of the semester, the EVP will meet with the committee head to try to evaluate who has fully earned their points and who might not have earned their full amount of points. And then we also, I don't know if y'all use Slack, but we do. So we have the different little channels so we can always kind of see, okay, who's responding, who's participating. And then as a few of the officers always try to, either president or EVP tries to show up at every committee meeting if we can. Sometimes they overlap, but just kind of pop in and not say anything, just kind of sit in the back, let the committee head do their thing, but just to kind of be there, remind everybody like, hey, let's just participate and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do.
My name is Summer Crawford. I'm from the Pi chapter at Georgia State University. I know something that we're trying to implement this year is creating more so like incentives. So like a scholarship for the brother who's like, who's doing the work, who's, being active, really try to build up that morale for the brotherhood. So I'm usually in me and the president, we're usually in all of the committee group chats just to making sure like the chairs and the committee members are like staying engaged and talking to each other, as well as usually they'll send me minutes, who all was there, who all was present. And I usually have like an Excel to like track who all was in the meeting or whatnot. And usually in their itineraries, whenever they're planning events, they'll tell me who is supposed to do what or whatnot, just to, making sure everybody's being accountable. So that's something we're trying to implement.
Awesome shares, everyone, so far. Anyone have any other ideas for the fall for committees or for anything else? All right. Well, in that case, then we can wrap up. We're actually 4 minutes over, technically. So thank you guys so much for your participation tonight. Thank you guys for attending. If you guys have any questions, make sure to contact your lovely CERC, either Amber or Coral, or just CERC@aksi.org if you don't know which one it is, as well as your chapter advisor, your section director, and your regional director. We are all here to help you all out for this upcoming fall and help you prepare for this great situation that we find ourselves in. So thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.